Welcome back. During the weekend, Red Cross volunteers continue to assist persons whose lives have been devastated by the flooding and landslides which occurred on Christmas Eve. Communications officer for the local Red Cross Society, Rendell Allen, says over the weekend they distributed more than 1,000 cases of bottled water to affected areas on the leeward side of the island. Mr. Allen said the program continued Saturday with the distribution of bottled water on the windward side of the country. He said this week the Red Cross Society would acquire a water purification unit which they will use to ensure that water is safe for consumption in many of the affected areas.
We have better arrangements that have been developed
today
within our region and even wider, yes, to assist in dealing with these matters. But of course, I'm not an expert in these areas, Tony, so I would not venture. But the only thing I can say, it's very difficult as a disaster manager to handle this sort of scenario.
Meanwhile, President of the SVG Red Cross, Bernard Morgan, says disaster situations are now more manageable compared to the past, but stated it's still difficult to deal with disasters as this one.
I believe we have maps of the floodplain areas. And if indeed we have those maps and we consider that there are some areas with high levels of vulnerability, then we could also consider the question of evacuation of persons who live within the floodplains. So I think that is one measure that we could look at.
2 concerts will be staged here in aid of the victims of the Christmas Eve floods. The Vincentian Association of Artists, Writers and Producers will host the concerts in Sandy Bay and Petit Bodel. President of the association, Rene Batiste, says the first concert takes place this Saturday at the London Playing Field in Sandy Bay, while the other will be staged on January 26th in Petit Bodel. Rene Batiste says the event, dubbed Comfort Concert, is geared at assisting in the rebuilding process. Ms. Batiste says the concert will feature pan, music and poetry. The concerts begin at 4 p.m. Vincentians are being assured that the forest and wildlife reserves remain generally intact following the passage of the trough system on Christmas, which resulted in unprecedented flooding across the country. Following a preliminary assessment of these valuable ecosystems, Acting Director of Forestry Fitzgerald Providence said only minor damage was sustained. He said the assessment and monitoring processes are continuing this week. Meanwhile, Senior Forestry Supervisor Cornelius Richards said the rivers have suffered extensive damage in the upper watershed areas. The Ministry of Health has been providing psychological care and counseling to persons who were affected by the recent natural disaster. Health psychologist attached to the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital, Dr. Giselle Miller, says her team has been providing psychological support to the victims. She said they will continue their effort by reaching out to the nation as a whole and providing support in whatever way they can. The Ministry of Health has been providing psychological care and counseling to persons who were affected by the recent natural disaster. Health psychologist attached to the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital, Dr. Giselle Miller, says her team has been providing psychological support to the victims. She said they will continue their effort by reaching out to the nation as a whole and providing support in whatever way they can. Your regional news is coming up after the break.